Hey everyone, it's Vivi. Remember this? On the left we have what appears to be Daxter. On the right, well, that would be Jak. Yeah, quite a leap in art style, wouldn't you say? What you see here was Naughty Dog's attempt at revisiting or rebooting the Jak and Daxter series. After the release of Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier in 2009, having experience with developing Uncharted, the team thought, hey, what if this series took a more realistic approach in terms of visuals? An art book was published back in 2014 by Dark Horse, The Art of Naughty Dog. As the name suggests, the book covers artwork and projects they worked on over the years, including undeveloped ones. Undeveloped in this case would be none other than Jak 4. A direct quote from the book states, "What would a realistic, distinctly non-cartoony Jak look like? We struggled with that idea for many months before realizing it might not work out." A comment I've come across multiple times is, we already have a Jak 4. We have Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier. Yes, that is a known fact. We do have The Lost Frontier, but this undeveloped project of theirs is literally titled Jak 4 as shown in this art book. That's simply what we're going with here. Speaking of The Lost Frontier, there was a big IGN article published back in 2013 titled The History of Naughty Dog. At a certain point in the article, Naughty Dog explained how they couldn't handle two projects at the same time, that being Jak PSP and Uncharted. The former was later picked up by High Impact Games. It rebranded as The Lost Frontier. If there's any Naughty Dog footprint left in The Last Frontier, it'd be the opening cinematic. According to the former employee Taylor Kurosaki, that whole opening cinematic in the final game was basically shot for shot what we did. During that time, the team really went through a rough phase, to a point where people wanted to resign almost weekly. Just that whole trying to work on two projects, not being certain of the outcome and all, that just weighed too heavy for the team back then. They knew their focus had to be on new hardware, that being the PlayStation 3 and Uncharted specifically. They scrapped Jak on PSP, High Impact Games took on the role, but Naughty Dog didn't seem that impressed. I don't want to say anything disparaging, I like the guys at High Impact. But if we had to do it all over again, we would have done some things differently in the execution of The Lost Frontier. I'm not happy with that being Jak's swan song. I think we could have done a lot better. So wait a minute, if we take a look at these pieces right here, you're telling me this is what they meant back then? How they would have executed The Lost Frontier differently had they actually handled it? Well, we don't know that, really. All we do know is that The Lost Frontier was handled by High Impact Games during the early PlayStation 3 era. What you see here is an undeveloped Jak and Daxter game during the 2010 period and onward. During that time, focus shifted to The Last of Us instead. Naughty Dog during that period believed taking such direction with Jak wouldn't be what fans wanted. Naughty Dog really wanted to focus on a new direction. They tried to apply what they learned with Uncharted to Jak and Daxter. Evan Wells, Naughty Dog's co-founder back in 2012, added, "We would end up limiting the direction that the company had this passion for, while simultaneously not creating the game that fans wanted. We just realized we're going to just do everyone a disservice." So at that point, the conversation started to move in a new direction. If you didn't know, them trying to attempt a Jak reboot / sequel, they weren't even sure what to describe it as, it only lasted a couple of months. This was according to Neil Druckman during a panel at PlayStation Experience back in 2014. Out of curiosity, some of you might wonder if Naughty Dog has ever said anything regarding the future of Jak and Daxter, whether they'd eventually revisit it or not. Well, about that. Their latest statements were made in 2021. They fully acknowledge how Insomniac Games kept on making Ratchet & Clank games, even expressed how exciting the Ratchet & Clank series has become, especially looking at Rift Apart. Evan Wells had stated how they still loved these characters and wished they had a Jak game in development. Unfortunately, not only did they feel they were limited with time, but their focus was primarily projects which were driven by the team. And if you think about it, Naughty Dog we have today has different teams, people. We are no longer looking at the same folks who worked on Jak and Daxter back then. Here's an interesting question before we wrap things up. Where would the series be today if this Jak 4 project had actually come to fruition? Would we be looking at the same characters we've always known? Just think about it. Before The Last of Us happened, Naughty Dog tried tackling Jak 4 and tried taking it in a whole completely different direction, especially aesthetically wise. Let's not forget they tried applying what they learned with Uncharted. Their focus back then was heavily team-driven and hardware-driven. They wanted to focus on the power of the PlayStation 3. If Jak 4 had actually happened in this style, two scenarios would have happened. Number one, this reboot of the series might have garnered a brand new audience. Or number two, it would have alienated longtime fans and would have ultimately affected its reception. So pretty much we're looking at two extremes here. One which Naughty Dog was self-aware about, the whole thing about this being a disservice to everyone. We also wonder whether or not this series even needs such treatment. The whole realistic approach. Naughty Dog themselves acknowledged how far the Ratchet & Clank series has come. If Rift Apart can look this good, then a Jak game keeping its natural essence with visuals like this, for example, I mean, that most definitely be something interesting to think about. What do you think about all this? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, a massive thanks to my patrons for their support. My name's Vivi, and until next time.